This is High School Not So Much a Musical, a podcast that takes you on a ride through the peaks and valleys of a high school journey. Here are your presenters, Nitin Jaladanki and Ayush Agarwal.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of High School Not So Much a Musical. Today we're joined with Finch, who is a content creator, influencer, speaker, and podcast host. He is a no-nonsense, forward thinker who engages audiences with his comedic relief, compassionate hope, and unorthodox brand of wisdom. So, Finch, if you could give an introduction of yourself, what exactly you do, and how you kind of got started with everything, that'd be great.
Oh man, I'm just a guy from Atlanta who man, who loves impacting people, educating, encouraging, empowering.
Yeah, that's awesome. So if you could talk a little bit more about exactly, how you go about those things, like what entrepreneurial ventures you started to kind of engage with those things. And you mentioned that you create content and you're a podcast host, so if you could talk a little bit about that'd also be great.
So I host we was recently named one of the top 200 podcasts by Apple, and just this past week named the top 10 in the top 100 Black podcasts. We landed at number 10 on yesterday. And so, my goal has always been to help people enhance their lives, whether that be careers, relationships, or finances. And, I do that through creating content that allows people to see themselves through conversations and discussions we have. It also helps because I believe in building relationships. And so by doing so, we have on our podcast, which is called Off the Fence with Finch, where we attempt to help people get off the fence in life, because we believe a lot of times people are uncertain about who they are, where they are, what they want to do next. And we're just here to assist them with secrets and recipes that allow them to move past their wall of uncertainty so that they can live lives purposefully, so that they can enjoy and I think sometimes we get so caught up in everyday life. And when you're an adult, you get caught up in paying bills and going to work that you don't actually know how to live and enjoy life. And so that's kind of what we do through the podcast. We have a host of other content we'll be creating, a couple shorts, commercials, and a host of other video and audio content that we hope the people will enjoy and love for years to come, to be exact. So, that's kind of what I do and how I impact people. And it's such an honor to be here with you guys and having this conversation today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about yourself, how you got into the podcasting space, because podcasting is something that a lot of people I've seen they do for fun, but what exactly motivated you to start your podcast? And if you could give the audience maybe some of your best moments from the podcast, that would be great.
Oh, great question. I did radio 12 years ago, and I had an afternoon drive show, and I really enjoyed impacting and connecting with people. We used to have call-ins, we had special guests, celebrity guests, and I took a long break. And back in 2018, I was looking to reboot my radio show, and we was looking at a deal with iHeart, and that deal fell through. And so I was just like, it's just probably not meant for me to do radio again. And a friend of mine suggested, hey, I think you should start a podcast. And this was right before the pandemic started. So around 2019. And so 2020, I was like, okay, I think it's a good thing. Now, I didn't know anything about podcasting at that time, because I came from radio and television. So, I didn't know podcasting was so popular, and it's grown tremendously over the years. And so I was like, okay, we're stuck in the house now, and this is a great time to reinvent myself. And this is a great time to really get back into the radio world. And podcasting was the way to do it. And so I decided, hey, let me launch this podcast. And that's really what motivated me. I wanted to have genuine conversations with people. And I wanted to provide people with secrets and recipes, secrets and or recipes that would assist them to move past certain points of life, especially at that time, because at that time, everybody was stuck in the house and people's mental health was being affected greatly. And so I decided, hey, let me create something that I believe will assist people in moving past where they are to getting where they desire to be. And that's actually what motivated me to start this podcast thing.
Yeah, I think that gives us a really good introduction on how exactly you got started with the podcast. So if you could talk a little bit more about, what exactly your podcast is geared towards, what you talk about on there, some of the guests that you've talked to, or, some of the highlights of your podcast, which episodes did you really like, how you kind of approach getting on guests, how do you kind of approach like creating content for the episodes, etc.
Another great question. When it comes to guests and episodes, we reach out to some guests based upon what they do and if they can assist us in meeting our overall goals, which is enhancing people's life, clearing the fence so people can hurdle over life's obstacles. And so it really just depends on what their level of expertise is and if we believe they can assist. Here lately, though, we are in season 4 of our podcast. We really haven't had to go after guests because our podcast has grown so much. We have a host of PR people, agents that reach out to us about having guests on. And we've been fortunate to utilize some great outlets like podcast guests, Matchmaker FM, and so they provide us with guests. Guests reach out to us and say, hey, I think I would be great on your podcast. Or, hey, we heard a lot about your podcast. We would love to see if we can get our client on, or so forth and so on. And so, that's really how we get guests. We've had, and this is the thing about our podcast, it's like you don't have to be famous to be on our podcast. You just have to have something relevant to talk about, because we cover an array of subjects. Just last night, we do our podcast live on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Pacific. And we was talking about, can you buy homes, businesses, and land in America? And we was kind of talking about ownership. And we had a guy who was on the show who's most people wouldn't know, but he's a pretty big deal. And he moved from America to Ghana, and he was just giving us some great stories on ownership and the difference in ownership here in America versus in other countries. And so it's guests like that. We've had Oprah's dietitian, Esther Bloom, on our show. We've had Hill Harper. So we kind of mix up our guests when it comes to, what they do. And we're not always looking for someone that's known, who's an influence or even a celebrity. You really just have to have secrets and recipes that align with our goals and objectives. And when that happens, we'll have you on and because our conversations are not interviews. We just have conversations like you guys and just talk about things that people can relate to. And so when it comes to booking guests and subjects and topics, we have an array of that because we believe our audience, which primarily consists of women, our audience is, I think, 50+% women, and between the ages of 25 and 40 and 56 and 60. And so, we try to present topics that we feel cater to that demographics and that audience. And when it comes to favorite episodes, man, they all are my favorite. I love every episode we've done. It's not one episode we've ever had I was like, I don't know, or one guest we had be like, I think in the early stages of our show in seasons 1 and 2, we was really just trying to get our footing, and so really learning what our DNA would be was key. And so I feel like now in season 4, we're in the mid-stride of season 4. You know, we have a good pick on what we're able to do. So we love the show, man. I love it. I look forward to it each and every week. It's live on YouTube on Tuesdays, and the audio portion comes out on Fridays.
That's great. I like that you said that pretty much every episode is your favorite, because that's something that we also deal with a lot, because we like having like a different theme for every episode. So we've talked about like acting, we've talked about business, the stock market, school, journalism, all that kind of stuff. But I think that what separates our podcast from some of the others, like you were saying, is that we don't commentate on a common theme every time. We have a different person who comes on, and it's honestly like as high schoolers, it's a really great learning experience for us, because we have so many different types of people that are coming from all different age ranges, from different parts of the world. And Matchmaker has also been one of the driving forces for us to kind of get all the types of guests that we do. So we've had a lot of impactful podcasts, considering that we're high schoolers, and some of the podcasts that were really impactful have to do with something that directly affects the high school audience. So for you specifically, what was one podcast that personally affected you, whether it be positively or negatively, or maybe change your perspective on like a certain topic? Because just listening and learning about other people's opinions is a very easy and simple way to get to know about what else is happening. So what would you say is your most impactful podcast?
The one that I do, or one that I've heard before?
I would say one that you did, maybe like a certain guest or a certain topic. So what was the most impactful?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Most impactful. I wouldn't say we've had just one particular show that was most impactful, but I'm gonna say personally, when Esther Bloom was on the show, it impacted me greatly, because it was a time where I was having trouble sleeping, and she came on, like literally we had a hour-long conversation, and she gave tips not only to the audience, but she helped me resolve my sleep apnea problem that I was having at the time. And to me, that was more impactful. I ain't gonna say more impactful, but it was greatly impactful to me personally, because it wasn't like most shows where I'm just looking to help the audience. It was a show that actually helped me, because she had a host of recipes that I needed at that time. And I think I didn't even realize how stressed I was, and all the things I was dealing with, because again, this was in the middle of the pandemic. And she was like, "Hey Finch, man, I'm gonna help you out today." And the tips that she gave me, like literally that night, I put them into action and slept like a baby, man. And so I would say, for me personally, that was a show that impacted me greatly, because it was secrets and recipes that I personally needed. I'm sure the audience got a lot out of it as well, but it benefited me greatly personally because of what I was dealing with at the time.
If you talk a little bit about exactly, how she went about that process, what she told you about, like the cure she told you about, the remedies, etc., the tips she told you about that helped cure your sleep apnea.
Yeah, so she asked me a series of questions about things that I do when preparing for bed. And she was saying, "Hey, I was like, I know I'm to go to bed. It looks like I'm trying to go to bed by 10 or 11. And then some nights I'm up to 3, 4, and some nights I don't sleep at all, I'll still be up at 6, 7 in the morning." And so she asked me this one question. She said, "So what time do you normally start preparing for bed?" And I was like, "I don't." And she's like, "Okay, so that's where you have to begin. You got to start winding. If your goal is to be in bed by, let's say, 9 o'clock, you got to start winding down by 7:30, 8 o'clock, because it takes a good 45 minutes for your mind to conceive the fact that it's time to shut the body down and go to sleep." And I was like, "Wow, really?" She said, "Yeah." And then secondly, did you sleep with your phones and stuff like that near you in the bed? I was like, "Yeah, because if it rings, I want to be able to get it." She said, "No." Tonight, I want you to leave those gadgets. Don't even take them in your bedroom. And I was like, well, okay, I have blackout curtains everywhere. And so she's like, yep, close your curtains, leave your devices in a whole separate room. And I want you to start winding down about 8:30 tonight. Man, I did that, got into bed, 8:30, closed my eyes. It's dark, it's peaceful, it's quiet. And literally by 9 o'clock, or probably before, I was asleep. And I was like, wow, that really worked. And she was giving me the insight of how the brain works when it comes to sleep, and what happens during the time that you're sleeping, and how so many things can be going on in your mind. And when you don't settle your mind before you go to sleep, like she's like, most people watch TV. And I was like, yeah, that's me. I'm most people. I watch TV at night until I get sleepy. And she said, well, your body won't know that it's time to go to sleep unless you shut it down. And so that's what I started doing. That was one of the things I did that night, was what got in my bed early, didn't bring any gadgets in the room at all. And I slept like a baby, probably the most peaceful sleep I had in a very long time.
That's our show for today. Now roll the credits. High School Not So Much a Musical is hosted by Ayush Agarwal, Nitin Jaladanki, and Rishi Sinha. Narration by Samhit Padala. Music from Louis Luang Relaxation Cafe, Tune Pocket, and Infraction. If you like the show, please recommend it to your friends and family. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.